Greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm Andrew from Team Respawn, and this is a video of theoretical proportions. This is kind of me making the case for a second season for Halo Wars 2, and if you can't get a second season, this is also the case to get more maps into Halo Wars 2, because I think the biggest flaw to Halo Wars 2 right now, besides the stability issues that the game has, is it doesn't have a lot of maps, and we've only received a couple of maps as DLC since the game came out, and I think it was a huge swing and a miss on 343's part. I think they really, if they just pushed out a map pack or did a couple of maps with the occasional leader or something of that sort, they would really have killed it here. Nonetheless, I'm going to make the case for some maps, why you need them, and some content that I would recommend you put into the second season pass for Halo Wars 2. That is never going to happen. This is all theoretical. Here we go. So, I'll make the case for the maps first. And I think the current maps in Halo Wars 2 are good, but they're not great. But they're not bad either. I would just put them as good. The problem, and I've made a video on this in the past, it's on the channel if you want to go check it out. It's called Why the Maps Suck and How to Improve Them. There's little variety in the maps of Halo Wars 2. Most of them have like three major lanes connecting your base to their base, with the mixture of like mini bases or the occasional base in the middle. Sometimes they'll sprinkle in teleporters and such. It's kind of predictable how the maps are laid out in Halo Wars 2. And granted, Halo Wars 2 does take place on the Ark, so I kind of get what they're coming from. Like, well, all the maps take place, in the same planet, if you want to call the Ark the same installation. So, therefore, the map should be similar in design. I can kind of see that, but I think that's kind of your way of getting an excuse out of it. I would say all the maps are kind of like barren wastelands. There's not much going on within the maps. That's the biggest flaw with the maps. They have no character. There's nothing that takes place by water or in a city or, in a forest. There's nothing of that sort. It all looks like either it's heavily inspired by Forerunner technology like you see on Bedrock and Highway maps like that, or they're just complete barren wastelands like Ashes. So it's either one extreme or the other. It's Forerunner stuff or just a complete wasteland. And I think you really could have mixed some stuff in there to really make some good maps. I really wish they would have looked at more of the design of the Halo Wars 1 maps, to really take that as a foundation to build some Halo Wars 2 maps. And speaking of Halo Wars 1 maps, I think the best maps to add in Halo Wars 2 with minimal effort is to do kind of like a remastered or anniversary quote unquote map pack from Halo Wars 1 and put it into Halo Wars 2. Why? Because the maps are familiar. I think all the maps in Halo Wars 1, with the exception of like one, are amazing, and they're probably pretty easy to import into Halo Wars 2 since they kind of already had to quote unquote redo these maps for Halo Wars Definitive Edition, which, if you don't know, is the first Halo Wars running natively on Windows 10. It's on Steam, and it's also on Xbox One. And it runs at 60 FPS. They kind of tuned up the animations and such, the explosion effects, all that sorts. It looks really, really good. So I think they've kind of dipped their toes in the water with these maps doing Halo Wars Definitive Edition. So I'm assuming it would take not a whole lot of effort to move these into Halo Wars 2. You would probably have to make the scale of the maps a little bit bigger, because you got to think of it in Halo Wars 1, the highest pop cap you could have was either 40 or 50, depending on which faction you were. So I think you're going to have to make the maps a little bit bigger, like the distances between each other's bases are a little bit, longer. That way you can fit 120 pop cap of units into these Halo Wars 1 maps. And also, the Halo Wars 1 maps have so much character going on in it. You can take, for example, that there's cover in strategic spots, spots where units actually have to go by. There's things that you can capture that give you more supplies. Granted, that's kind of implemented in Halo Wars 2 with the power nodes, but this kind of takes it a step further. Like on Beasley's, there's the thing that you can capture in the center that you get 10 extra pop cap. Stuff like that I think is really interesting. Or there's mini base slots with turrets protecting them. And there's a lot of choke points in the Halo Wars 1 maps. Places where it's designed to have massive battles. I'm talking about the center of the map in docks, or the bridges that disappear on Terminal Moraine. Places like that, I think, would be a really change of pace in Halo Wars 2. So, which maps should you add from Halo Wars 1 into Halo Wars 2? I'm going to pick my favorite 4. I know this is going to differ from person to person, but I think taking two or even three 2v2 maps and one 3v3 map. And that's also another thing that's interesting is a lot of the maps in Halo Wars 2 scale. They go from 2v2 or 3v3. So I think you're going to run into some issues there if that's what you're going to do. But I'm going to try and pick a big variety of maps where no maps are kind of really similar. So the maps I chose were Labyrinth, mostly because I love the design of that map. It's pretty interesting. It's symmetrical. It's pretty. You can get the protector sentinels in those pits, which I think really changes how you think when you're planning an attack on that map. Terminal Moraine, best map in the game by far, solely because of the Super Turtle Island bases on each side. You can really change the game by taking control of either of those bases, even though from where they're located, they really have no effect on the other bases on the maps. However, you controlling that can really, you can just hold your ground there for on Terminal Moraine for really forever if you know what you're doing. Fort Dean, I like this because it really emphasizes you working as a team because you're so close together. There's the center wall that you can garrison and it creates the energy barrier. It's really good, and I think it really emphasizes on teamwork. And sometimes in Halo Wars 2, you're so spread out from your teammate, it's like, why the hell should I even go over there? Their base is going to be dead by the time my crap moves over there. That happens a lot on Highway, or is it Bedrock? I get the name of those two maps mixed up. Finally is the docks, and I think the docks, just for that one natural choke point, and really the design of the docks is pretty brilliant in my opinion. So those are the maps I would pick from Halo Wars 1 to move into Halo Wars 2. We did, during this big thread talking about the proposed changes into Halo Wars 2, someone did bring up, hey, is there ever going to be new maps in Halo Wars 2? Because that's something it really does need. There was an official 343 response, and it said something along the lines of, we would love to, trust us, but it's just not in the cards right now. I think it's like the exact quote that they said. So I wouldn't say it's a no, but I would say probably not for a long time. The next time I think you would see maps added into Halo Wars 1 or Halo Wars 2 would be something like what's happening with the Age of Empires series right now, which is like the series becomes dead. It just kind of sits there for like 10 years or so, and then people are like, oh yeah, you remember when this was good? And then a bunch of modders get together and they're like, you know what, we're going to make a studio out of this and announce or propose to Microsoft that we do an expansion pack. And that's what happened with Age of Empires 2. That's what happened with Age of Mythology. I could assume that'll happen with Halo Wars eventually, but you also got to take into account that 343 is overseeing all of this as opposed to nobody for Age of Empires. So I think you get into a bureaucratical issue there, maybe. I'm not sure. I just hope you, if you can, add maps into Halo Wars 2. I buy it. I buy a few and give it away or something, spread the word out. It'd be awesome. So if there was another season pass for Halo Wars 2, I don't think this season pass should go very long. Like make it like $5 or even $10 and be like, or even 15. Say, you know what? This season pass is only going to run for 3 months. The first month you're going to get maps. The second month you're going to get 1 leader, and the third month you're going to get another leader, and like that's it. Kind of like a sunsetting season pass kind of a thing, like a celebration. Hooray! Halo Wars 2 is over. Here you go. And granted, you could have said that was with what it was with Pavium and Vortis and Awakening the Nightmare and all that. But I think this would be really good fan service. And so this is kind of Ed's forte. He's done a lot of these videos, but me just real quick, I would say only do 2 leaders for this theoretical season pass. And the reason why I say that is because there's so many leaders in Halo Wars 2 already. I think introducing more leaders would complicate everything for Halo Wars 2 per se. It's going to affect it immensely. So the less you introduce, the better. And I think what's missing from Halo Wars 2 on both sides are flying hero units. You see a lot of infantry style units like Pavium, the Hunter Captain, the Spartans, a Mega Team. You see a lot of vehicle style units with Forge, and you could argue Kinsano and the Hunter Captain. You could argue. However, there's no flying units, which I could have swore there would have been. You can throw the Bison in there too if you want. I mean, it is a hero unit and it is a vehicle. However, there's no flying hero unit. So I think for the Banished, you would have to add the Prophet of Regret from Halo Wars 1, just like you did with the Arbiter from Halo Wars 1. Make him flying right off the bat. Your the unique unit would be either the Vampire or the Jackal Squad. I think it would be a pretty nice addition. For powers, the usual, like the Cleansing Beam, of course. Maybe since the chair in Halo Wars 1 had the Protector Sentinels or the Aggressor Sentinels protecting him as one of the upgrades, you could get that as some sort of leader power ability, kind of like what Anders has for the Sentinel, what's it called, the Arc Defense. And maybe perhaps even have a power where you can call in an Honor Guard or a couple of them that'll last for a few minutes and like they'll die eventually, or like they vanish back up to um, you know, um, the Prophet of Regret ship or whatever. This could be like a Time Decimus drop, I think is something you could compare it to. I think that'd be pretty cool. For the UNSC, I don't know. I'm really torn. Part of me thought like Commander Lasky would be pretty cool, but he's not really related that much. He doesn't have a big fan base per se as much as like the Johnson would. So then I started thinking about the rookie from Halo 3 ODST, and it's kind of like, well, Cutter has ODSTs. And then so I'm a little torn. So the best thing I could have thought of was George from Halo Reach. And I'm not so sure how I feel about it. I think his hero unit could be kind of similar to the Hunter Captain, slow but powerful, but maybe make his Y ability like he calls in a Falcon to command, kind of sort of how Jeremy's Mantis works, or Jerome, pardon me. And maybe like having an ultimate power like where you drop in Noble Team for a little bit. I think that'd be so cool. Or even just drop a couple of Spartans from Noble Team. So slow and powerful, similar to the Hunter Captain, but his overall focus is on infantry, and kind of infantry working together. But then again, you're kind of taking apart. That's kind of the point of Jerome. So I'm not entirely sure how that would work. But that's just kind of my thought process for a couple of leaders for Halo Wars 2, as well as the case for making more maps in Halo Wars 2. I really hope Halo Wars 2 eventually comes to Steam so the modders can really get digging with Halo Wars 2 and maybe even possibly coming up with some maps. Or, just leaving kind of a scenario editor, just like how Age of Empires does. Just give the modders some tools and let them go out and make some maps. I think that'd be pretty neat. Anyway, post your thoughts in the comments down below. What kind of stuff do you want to see added to Halo Wars 2? More maps? More leaders? More campaign missions? What do you want? Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. And that about does it for me. Thanks for watching. I'm Andrew from Team Respawn, and I'll see you next time.